Ladies and gentlemen, welcome episode 28 of Check the Wire podcast, the podcast where myself and Northernlion talk about what goes on behind content creation, behind the madness, behind the Doki Doki Literature Club playthrough on Northernlion's YouTube channel. Episode 28. Ryan, what's going on?
I'm feeling good. Happy to be here as usual. How you doing?
Hey, you know, it's a good day in Michigan. The sun's out. Your guns are out, and I'm talking about Ryan Gary's 27-inch pythons. What's good with you, man?
Honestly, everything. I don't want to say very little is good. Everything's fine, but you know, this is in my morning, so pretty much I've done like nothing today.
Did you get a
relax?
Cup of Joe?
I did, but you know, from my own refrigerator. I just watched another streamer watching YouTube videos where they would search for the worst sports temper tantrums of all time and then just watch the video and laugh at it. And I was like, this is a good way to start my morning.
Was the tennis guy one of them?
John McEnroe was very much.
You gotta be kidding me. What does he say?
I don't know. It's mostly like bleeped out. But also, I was like watching, and it's funny. Don't get me wrong. But also, I was like, man, how did people like watch TV in the 1970s? All the audio is just like one tone. It's just like there's no clarity. It's just a din that comes through, and occasionally you can make some words out, like it's coming out of a tin can with a string or something.
You know, here it just reminds me of like when I was like, I rarely, like my parents rarely like laughed at me as a kid, but it reminds me, I was like I remember this like clear as day. When I was a little kid, because I knew they watched black and white TV, and I asked my parents, I mean, I had to be in like first grade. I'm like, was everyone in black and white? Like I didn't like you don't comprehend that like if you're watching TV in the 70s and it's like fuzz vision, you know, it's just I don't know.
It's not what it looked like.
No,
dude. I mean, but I remember having similar revelations. You know, it'd be like 1998, and you'd look at old TV and be like, man, now it's like photorealistic. Like I don't even see how they could get any better. And then when on Saturday there was a replay of an old NHL game from like 2000. And I was like, this looks like it's from the Stone Age. It's 4x3. There's interlacing. You know, you can barely even make out like player names and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Did you have like the old ESPN or whatever CBC like corner like
it did? Yeah.
That's how I can kind of figure out like when the game took place based on the score. You know, graphic in the bottom right corner, you know.
The team names were like on the graphic, they're in like Times New Roman. It was back in the day where like computer graphics only had like 5 fonts.
We were talking about this during the Twitch show, but let's talk about the other making something like too good, too technologically good. I remember walking around Best Buy like when they came out with 120 hertz TVs and they had like Pirates of the Caribbean playing, but it looked like a soap opera because it was moving so fast. Was that motion smoothing?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, I think it depends. I think stuff that's filmed like at that frame rate is fine. Stuff that's like smoothed up to be at that frame rate looks very unreal. I remember like being in South Korea. This is the first time I had it too. You'd walk through like the department store and the music videos. You're just like, this doesn't even look like real life. Like it looks computer generated or something. So I don't know. I'm like, personally, I'm a 30 to 60 guy, I guess, at the end of the day. Once we get into apparently in Warzone, it would really help me out if I got to 120, but you know, we'll see if that happens.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you, because I feel like you know a lot more DAE scientific stuff. Is there a cap as to what we can as humans process in frames, like where it's negligible?
I suppose at some level there must be a cap of the amount of smoothness we can see. But I don't know. I imagine it's got to be in the order of like, you know, thousands or tens of thousands of frames per second, my guess.
And this is not a tech podcast, but there's a Twitter thread going around about monitors, right? And how there are different hertz of monitors. I'm like, yeah, is it really like, oh yeah, I can see like a half pixel more and a little more speed? Or is it, and I don't know what kind of I have like a basic monitor. Do you have like one of the better hertz monitors?
No, I got a 60 hertz monitor, which is really good. But I saw like I don't know, maybe you saw the same thing. Maybe this is what you're talking about. It was a Warzone GIF of a guy running out from cover, and it was like, here's what it looks like at 30, here's what it looks like at 60, and here's what it looks like at 120. And it really is like at 120, the guy pops out of the cover like noticeably faster than the guy pops out at 30. And
Really?
also, I think for tracking, like if you're trying to shoot a moving target, it's like, with if you look at 30 and you don't have a comparison right away, you're like, that looks normal. When you look at it compared to like 144 or 120 or even 60, is he might as well be in like old time stop motion.
So
You're like, you have to guess in your mind like where he's gonna be, and at 144, you're like, I see where he's going as he's doing it.
so you're basically saying if we get 144 hertz monitors, we probably at least quadruple our kill count in Warzone.
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah, because most of the time when I die, I'm like, it was the dang tick rate on my monitor wasn't good enough. It's not that I'm shooting like 6 feet to the left of where the guy's standing.
I don't know, like, is it exponentially more expensive? Like, I know a normal monitor, don't, if chat don't roast me, it's like $200, $250.
Yeah, it seems about right.
And like a hertz one is what, like 500 probably?
Honestly, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I got no idea.
So anyway, so from technological savviness to our, the crux of the show, we get sponsored deals. Some have been done, some are coming up. You want to lead off with your W of the week?
Yeah, I mean, so my dub is multifaceted. It's very similar to last week, but last week I was like, there's a lot of sponsored stuff on the horizon. This week is like, it's not on the horizon. It's like 1 minute till sunup, so till sunrise. So like, starting today, I have a sponsored thing going out today. I have a sponsored thing, like a sponsored video on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Ooh.
I have on Saturday, we're doing a sponsored thing with Kate on her stream. And then I'm trying to think, because there's more. On next Tuesday, I have a sponsored thing, post Unity.
Okay.
Or pre-Unity, probably post-Unity. And then on that Friday, I have a sponsored thing as well. So it's really like, admittedly, there's like, it's only 4 or 5 different things, but some of them take place over multiple days, but it's crammed in. So, and they're all good, but like the W of the week is that sometimes I've been insanely, like, because I'm always running pretty close to the red line for the most part. But, I'm at the red line and then I put off the sponsored thing until like, oh, the deliverables are due like tomorrow. And then I have to work like until late in the night to make sure that they're done. And then, it's stressful. This time, like the 3 sponsored videos already done. The thing that's going up at, in a couple of hours here, we did it last Wednesday and got all that stuff approved. So that's one of the wins, is like not procrastinating, which was really only able to happen because Doki Doki's done recording at least. And then the other thing is, and I think it speaks to the value of like when you have the opportunity, surrounding yourself with good people. David on Sunday was like, hey, you got a lot of stuff coming up that you have obligations for. Would it be nice if I collated that into like a single document that, gave you stuff you had to do every single day? And I was like, yeah, that'll probably help a little bit, but it's actually been a complete lifesaver, because otherwise I would have spaced on the videos, whatever, no problem, right? I know when the videos are, I know when the streams are, but stuff like tweets and
can you talk about that? Because I feel like when maybe someone who's in content creation or not hears like sponsored deal, they think, oh, play game, get paid. But there is,
yeah.
I mean, that's the crux of it.
That's
of course.
Bounties.
But there's more behind it. So you talk about like the stuff that Miyazaki or David put on the sheet for you. Like, what would be like a typical? Can you talk about? Because you said you had one hit at 2:00 today.
Yeah, 2:00 today. There's going to be the first video. So I mean, like for that specifically, I mean, it's a long process that happens, right? And thankfully, like, it's mostly hands off for me, but I know that because you're running that side of the business for yourself right now, I'm sure you can speak to it. You get like an email that comes in that's like, sometimes it's like, hey, we've got a thing for this game that you might already be aware of. Sometimes it's like, hey, we've got an opportunity, but we can't tell you what it is. But here's the parameters, and if you sign this NDA, then we can tell you what it is. So then you sign the NDA, then they send like the media pitch of like what it is and what they're looking for, and then you're like, okay, send me a contract. Then you'd sign the contract. Usually in the contract, it'll be like, the video is whatever. What you see is what you get in the video. But then usually there's like a couple Twitter posts, or I imagine if you have like a bigger Instagram feed or something like that, they might be like an Instagram post or a story or something like that. And, sometimes then there's obligations afterwards. Like, I've had some deals that were like, we need to get your analytics like 48 hours after it goes up and then 30 days after it goes up for like across all these different metrics. And it's not hard. Like it's not like it's exhausting or anything like that. It's just a few mouse clicks, but there is more that goes into that stuff than meets the eye for sure.
So your takeaway from all this stuff, like, and as someone who's, we've been talking about for a while, but you're about to have your first kid, you're preparing for that. Did that affect the number of deals you took, or would you have taken these regardless, do you think?
I always go through like an oscillation. So like, and it's not totally within my control. It really depends on like how much sponsor stuff is being offered. Sometimes we go months without doing anything sponsored, and it's because there's been no great offers that have come in. And sometimes it's because like there's two great things this week, but I can't really fit both in, so I'm only going to choose the one that I think is the best fit or the one that I signed already. This was really a situation where I told David, like, I don't want to do any more sponsored stuff. And then some stuff came in that was like, this is like such a good fit that it's you just can't say no to it as long as you can reasonably get it done. So that's pretty much what it came down to there for that stuff. But I mean, sure, part of it is definitely like people are going to have a high tolerance for sponsored deals because the fits are great, but also everyone's like, he's having a baby, in like a month and 3 days or something like that. So I think people are going to be like very positive about it.
Yeah, so I could speak on both ends, right? So like I went through a couple deals like the David Miyazaki way, right? Where you just you step up to the plate, you're like, oh, here's a nice little checklist. You got to stream, you got to tweet on these days, boom, it's easy. I could talk on this one because I just did it. So I just and we talked about last week, but now I can talk about it post facto. But so I did a sponsorship for Xbox Game Pass, and they specifically wanted me to play Battletoads. And I played Battletoads as a kid. It's a very hard platform. I'm like, this is going to be a great fit. And the game hadn't come out yet. I played it on the first day. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a speed running competition. I'm like, awesome. Like that's, it's like great fit, play the game. And they're like, well, one thing, you just got to play it on hard. I'm like, okay. And then there's parameters on like how long, on any deal, there's parameters on how long you have to play for. So I got into, it was a weekend deal. So I got into it and like I'm playing it. I'm like well beyond what we negotiated I played for, but I hadn't finished the speed run. So like at this point, like I'm making a decision. Do I just like, wrap it up because like I did my obligation? But for me, it was like twofold. One, whenever I take a deal, I want to go above and beyond for the sponsor just to be like, hey, like you get a little bit more than what you bargained for. But also, like I didn't want to yeet the run or not finish the playthrough with everyone kind of involved in it.
Yeah.
So it ended up working out, whereas like it kind of, I don't want to say bit off more than I can chew, but like I ended up playing way more than I was contractually obligated. But it ended up being like a lot of fun. I think the only thing that, and they made and the thing that was great about working with them is they adjusted the parameters on the fly. So by Sunday, they're like, okay, hey, you can play it on easy difficulty because then you get better runs and more fast. But on the back end, like I had never been through the process of like having tweets approved or having like them go into an unlisted YouTube video and say, hey, add this, change this.
Yeah.
And so like that's all stuff that like it's easy. And it just takes time. And for me, it just took like, typically I'm used to like tweeting and doing stuff in my own language. And it still was, but I don't ask like you or anyone if I want to tweet something, I just send it. But I think, that's part of, and I understand it. Like they don't want any, for me, when I ran tweets by them, like, oh, you got to include this hashtag because it's sponsored or whatever. So just like kind of administrative stuff. But I think for the most part, it went really well. I have another one coming up on Saturday similar to you, and I think the only thing I learned from it is, well, two things, and I'll talk about on the L of the week, is that it's streaming. So normally I stream like Monday through Friday, usually 4 to 5 days, and I don't stream on the weekends, but streaming Saturday and Sunday, like putting on a show, like it is gas, you know what I mean? So like, and it took away it's like one of those rare things when you're going to get into that spot eventually where it's like you're taking away like family time, but you're also getting compensated for it. So for me, I came to the revelation, like it's a rare opportunity, like no pun intended, but it's, and but it was like, it was good. It was a good deal. It was fun. I think, the community was like rallied behind it, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want to take a ton of weekend deals if possible, because, and I'll fold it into L of the week once we get there. But because it's a lot of gas, So
Yeah, and I mean, I take like a full day off on Saturday, but again, we don't have kids yet, so I'm sure that a day off when you have kids is rewarding, but also it's not like you're decompressing like the whole day, right? But you don't even take like a real day off, right? Like you still do YouTube stuff on the Saturday and Sunday when you're not streaming.
yeah, and I'm just trying to get away from that, and like that's where I'm at now. Is like I'm trying to catch up, get a few spelunkies, get Golden Goblet done ahead of time so that I can enjoy the weekend and not do that. Like that's the end goal. I don't want to work on the weekend, but sometimes it's just kind of the air win. Like a week like this for Golden Goblet, it's beautiful. Like 9 holes.
I got them all done on the first day.
Yeah, it's like the videos are 10-15 minutes. It's fun, it's easy. Not that but that just helps to like get things going. But when you take a weekend deal, it's kind of like, it's good. I mean, it's all first world problems, but for me, like it just reiterated to me like that those weekends and that time off is super important. For me, and I'm self-aware for me.
I think there's like a huge, and I've noticed this as well. Like we're doing the sponsored thing on Saturday, which normally I wouldn't do, but it was kind of like a prerequisite for this thing, and it's Kate's deal, so I'm gonna be there for her. But like the psychological difference between like 6 days on, 1 day completely off, and like, oh, it's gonna be 13 days on until the next day completely off is big for sure. Because like I know normally on Saturdays is where we like run errands and stuff like that have to be run, right? But if you're doing a stream like 11 to 3, are you gonna wake up at 8 a.m. on Saturday? Maybe like the last couple of Saturdays, you might even get a chance to sleep in and then run to the bank at the minute after it opens, or are you gonna try to do it after 3 when probably you're gonna be like starving and want to get a chance to decompress? So no, you just push it for another day. So yeah, I think it psychologically it makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like relatable for a lot of people is that for me it's just you think of like, oh, you're always on the grind and stuff, but for me, I know deliberately taking time away, it just makes everything better when you come back, and it's not always about running, we've talked about all the time, running on E and running redlining. It's not always about that. Even if you're in growth mode or you're just starting out, it's just about knowing what works for you, and for me, I like time with my family, and like that's kind of to make things full circle, like that's why you work so hard, right? Is so that you can enjoy that time, and at the same time, like, and I go through like these little hoops in my head. It's like, well, you work so you can enjoy time with your family, but you also enjoy work too, right? So it's like it's like you find the perfect blend of both. But yeah, so with that being said, we both have weekend sponsored.
We do, yeah, but it's fine. Like I don't know, what was it, like 2 weeks ago? I was like, oh, I'm redlining, and then Doki Doki finished, and now I'm like at 80%, and I'm like, I can fit something new, and now we got probably next week I'll be like, oh, because I'm gonna have the extra stream after I'm gonna have the extra stream on Friday. I'm gonna be like, I'm so busy, and then when that's gone, I'll be like, like you never. I don't think it's about never learning the lesson. I think it's about acknowledging that you can redline some of the time for a good reason, but then you can't redline all the time, or you're going to end up, becoming one of those streamers who's like, I haven't been live in like 2 months, and I need that time off.
So okay, so your W is good. I'm gonna kind of tie in my W and L, but so my loss of the week is kind of twofold. Great weekend, all that stuff was good, the streams were good, high energy, but it came Monday. Like when I came on the show Monday, I played Tarkov and Sekiro. Tarkov was good, but like right after Tarkov, I'm like I was feeling the weekend, like the weekend gas, and I get to Sekiro. Yeah. And like Sekiro requires a lot of like focus and to do well. And like it kind of got to a point where I'm like, I think I ended the show maybe like 5 minutes early, but it wasn't until when Monday, at the end of Monday, hit me. I'm like, okay, hey, like, you're not a 7 day a week guy. You're just not, and more importantly, that I don't want to do that. But what it also made me realize is that I looked at my analytics, and I look month by month, and I have no problem talking about this, but I've noticed like a little bit, not a lot, but like a little bit of a sub decline from like the past 3 months. And I was like, okay, like it's not just random, right? That just doesn't happen. So I look at a couple things, why that is. And I pinned it down to two. One, taking the week off. So that's like, okay, you get it. And then the other
Sure,
one,
yeah.
yeah, you take a week off, and it's like, who knows how long it takes to get that back. But the other thing is that I have messed with my stream schedule a little bit. Like it used to always be 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, and now then I tried something where it's 10 a.m. so I'd get done at 2 p.m. And so I think there's like a little confusion, and so I've had a chance to kind of take a step back and look at that, and then I'm gonna go back to like a set schedule where it's not as much variance. But the reality of it is like my shifting schedule is part of my life. Like for example, on one of the days, and I don't like talking about this, but just to give insight, like one of the days my son had like a little sports lesson, and it was at 11. I'm like, there's no way I'm missing this. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of like the flexibility we have. And so like when I look at sub numbers like going down, I'm like, okay, it's like I'm not in Mayday mode by any stretch of the imagination, partnering with like sponsor deals and stuff, but I'm also hyper aware of like my number one job, I feel, is to take care of the community, not like making sure like the best sponsor deals come in and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a nice little wake up call for me to be like, all right, hey, like, here's where the variance is. Or in Michigan, like there's like some school stuff is starting up again, with, precaution. So I'm going to have a more normalized schedule, which will allow me to kind of reset and say, everyone, here's what you can expect and why. But I feel like you're a little bit different where like if you ask anyone in your community, you'll be like, yep, it's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, NLSS, Tuesday, like they know. And your times have pretty much stayed the same. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think they should be normalized because they're like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and Sunday all start at different times. I think I could become one of those guys. Now's not a really good time to do it, but that's like, noon Pacific every day or something like that might be more pliable for many people. But yeah, it's been consistent in the times, even if the times are a little weird.
Yeah, and that's where like I'm at. I'm like between 10 and 11, and I'm always like stated on Sunday. But I like to get to a point, because that's just how I am, where it's like, all right, exactly when and where. It's not like I'm going live at 5 or I'm in that window, but I just want to get back to like, hey, you tune in at this time in this place and get it. And I feel like that's like, and I don't know if I'm sure there's other factors that go into like the dip, but at least I'm gonna be able, like in a couple weeks, or like I'll remove that variable out and be like, okay, we'll see if that had an impact or not. But I think for me, I'm sure I'm not the only person that goes through this, where like you see that and you're like, what do you deal with it? Like the last thing that crept in my head was like panic. It's not like that, but just to me is like, all right, what can I do to fix it? Have you ever had any times when like you had a dip or anything like that?
I think not really.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like I don't even notice until like accounting the next year, and I'm like, what the heck happened in May? But usually any noticeable dip is tied to time off, I think. So I mean, well, at least like for what I've done. So your week off was like about a month ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, I mean, historically, I just anecdotally, I think it takes like maybe a month or two to get back to normal numbers from stuff like that, which is, it sucks, but it's also just part of the business of Twitch. Like it's built in. Then the other thing I try to do sometimes is figure out like, is it a dip or was there like an artificial rise like recently? Because I think sometimes I see streamers like, and they're I don't know if the websites are still around, but when gift subs first came out, I would like peruse because you could see like how many gifted subscriptions have been given out on a channel over the course of like the past 30 days and how many like quote unquote actual resubscriptions there are. And some streamers went from, they like tripled their subscriber count in a month, and then a month later it started to dwindle down, and I heard them talking about like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, well, what's going on is like, like 10 people tripled your income for a month, and then they're like, I'm not going to do that every month, so you're coming down to like the level that you should expect to be at. So I try to like tease that stuff out, but for the most part it's like I just try to, I have like a tolerance factor, I guess, of like 20-25%. And
Yeah.
as long as, if I'm like plus or minus 25%, then I'm like, everything is okay. And maybe after that, if I started to dip another little percentage below that, I'd be like, we got to add in some kind of injection. Not like not an ask like I'm going to ask for subscriptions, but like maybe we can rework. Like I haven't been streaming Tuesdays after Unity because I've been using that time to get ahead on YouTube stuff, and it's honestly been nice to have kind of like a half day off throughout the week. So maybe it's time to Tuesdays after Unity, we can capitalize on the fact that nobody in our group stays live after that most of the time, and we could run like a little mini show there and keep it moving. But I think it's good to watch it as it goes, for sure. I think the number one thing I see with, and not so much with streamers, but I think it applies, but with YouTubers a lot, is like you stream, let's just hypothetically, let's say you have like 1,000 subscribers on Twitch, and then after like 6 months it starts to dwindle, and then you go live at 900, and when you finish the stream you're at 880, and you're like, what the heck am I doing? I just worked to get like minus 20 subscribers, which is not actually how it works. And you kind of get into this situation where you're like, well, every time, like on YouTube, I see it all the time. People are like, every time I upload a video, people remember I exist and unsubscribe. So why would I upload videos? Because it's making me smaller. And I'm like, well, you got to make the video to get the ad revenue and to get people to give you views in the first place. So I think as long as you keep, you got to keep momentum going, and then it's a lot easier to change course and adjust things, rather than being like, anytime I do anything, I feel like I'm slipping. The truth is that that's what's gripping you. The slipping is happening regardless, due to, people don't have as much disposable income because of the pandemic layoffs and stuff like that. Or, hey, people, like, what were you playing before Sekiro? I can't remember. Maybe
Undertale. But like, so here I'll hit you. So like, things like skyrocketed for Tarkov, and then I expected like a dip and then plateau. I mean, like, there's been a dip since the initial, which like I get. It was like wildfire, and then took the week off, and then that's kind of from there is where I'm analyzing. And so for now I'm like, okay, my mindset is like, I just take it for what it is. And the way I look at it so far out, I'm like, okay, hey, look, this is a trend that's worth watching, but it's not going to change any behaviors right now. But it's also like, okay, what outside of changing behaviors on, like, meaning the content that's being produced, what can I do? What else has changed? And to me, that's the schedule. But also, like, I don't know. But I think I'm with you where the answer is not like, and it's real. What Ryan said is real. Like, people get in, like, that's a real mindset on this side. Well, it's like, you keep slipping, but you just got to keep having the at bats. And for me, I look at this so long term. It's like, if amortized over the 12 months, like, it's, it'll be a record year. But I just want to make sure that, things aren't getting stale, and I think that's probably something too.
And I mean, I can relate in a big way too, that like a lot of your, maybe not a lot, but a third to a half of like your watch time on Twitch is probably Tarkov. So in some ways, like, you're married to the ebbs and flows of that game's popularity. So when they have drops, like, it's you benefit disproportionately. And then when there's a period, if competing games come out, or it's been a long time since a wipe, or yada yada, then you just naturally kind of get less viewership, which has been the case with Isaac for forever. You get explosions when new content comes out, and then you get like multi-year lulls where it's just like a desert of content. So I mean, I can relate to that as much as anybody, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, and the way I look at it, and it's not cynical, but it just is what this is how I look at it, is like, every time like Tarkov gets a bump for now, like, there's a residual long-term impact on me. So let's just say, for example, I was at 100 an explosion in Tarkov comes up, say you go up to 200, when it settles, I'm not settling at 100 next time. I'm at like one, even if I'm at 110 or 120 or 130, like there's that residual effect of, oh, hey, I found you through Tarkov. And I think
Yeah.
to you, like, that's how this is one of my tenets on how I believe like you make it in Twitch and YouTube is you gotta be known for something or a single game to get in the door. You know what I mean? Like you're Isaac, Bear Spelunky, whatever you want to say. Like everyone started somewhere, but they didn't, and it's super rare. It's like flash in a pan, but like no one's like, oh yeah, this guy started out as Variety. Or this girl. It's like, no,
well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's something, and I feel like that changes over time. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's like Isaac, and then I think you were a Spire guy, and then you're the Monster Train, like the one of the leading, if not the leading person, or when people think to that content. There's people that I'm sure found you because they were looking for Spire, or they were looking for Monster Train, or they were looking for Deadly Premonition 2.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's an element of that for sure. I think it's, and we've talked about this on this show before. I think that a mistake that streamers make and YouTubers have made for a decade is you become, for lack of a better word, you become famous or known for like X game, and then you're like, well, for the next year, when I make an Isaac video, it gets 100,000 views, and when I make a video on anything else, it gets 12,000 views. So I'm not going to make anything but Isaac. And then after like a year, you're like, I hate this game and I never want to see it again for the rest of my life. And it hasn't had any more content. Now I'm going to pivot to like something I want to play, and your numbers are just like through the floor, right? So one thing that I've done for a long time is recognize that, the whole Isaac thing. I mean, I didn't think it would be forever. I didn't think it would go on this long. I thought, maybe like 6 months or a year and a half or whatever. So it's been unexpectedly like constantly at a good level, but eventually it's going to change. So I was like, we got to like build variety. And for sometimes you put out variety and people don't really like it, but you get some people that are like, I'm a big fan. Like so many people still now are, I don't want to say bother me, but they are like, hey, you should do more like Paradox stuff. When I did the Paradox stuff, almost nobody watched it at all. But now that it's been like years since I've done it, there's over time, hundreds or thousands of people are like, this is what I was here for. So it has an effect. And I think that you're in that boat right now where like, you could have been the Tarkov guy. You could have streamed Tarkov 6 hours a day. And then probably when drops happen, you would have gotten more of a bump. And then in this period where maybe there's slightly less Tarkov interest, you would have been like screwed. Or you would have been like, I can't play it because the viewership's not that great. So now I got to pivot to Hyperscape, and maybe Hyperscape doesn't get a critical mass. And you're like, oh crap, now I'm going to play Warzone. But there's 7 streamers in the Warzone directory that have been streaming it 24/7 since November that are going to already have that momentum. And, you're in I think that by dividing your show in 2 or 3, when you did, which I think, I don't know, was probably 2 years ago or something, maybe even more than that now, you've kind of got that situation where people are there. Some people are there for Tarkov, and some people are there for everything, and some people are there for the second thing, but most people are like, this is the guy I want to watch no matter what he's doing.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I appreciate you saying that. And it's like, you gotta get in somewhere, right? And then, but I'm with you. It's like when I first started playing like Dark Souls, like I didn't have, like I wanted to play it, but then Dark Souls almost became like a second, and this is for people that are like watching and want to get into content creation. Dark Souls became like a second Tarkov. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people that are here and either from Tarkov or just for Dark Souls that like it. So it's like, it was like Tarkov and then Souls. Like, so you kind of ride, you don't know what the next wave is or what people want to see. You hope it's something like that where like it aligns and you're like, yo, Souls is amazing. And like for me, it's like, man, if people loved watching, like for me, a card game, I'd be like, like because it's hard because you don't always control the wave, but like it's one of those things where you got to make a decision. Like Fall Guys would be one. Like I'm fairly confident if like I were to stream a little more Fall Guys or put out some YouTube Fall Guys content, that it would do pretty good. But I also know internally my tolerance for that is about an hour at a time. So it's like, do I want to push the gas on maybe a wave I know I can ride a little bit, even though it's like I don't want to be like. Notice there's a people that play it like 6 hours and they're pogged up, and I don't know. Part of me too comes back to there's like a mix of doing what you genuinely love because people can see that, which I think may lead us into our next your L of the week. But like when you're having fun and making content and like putting on a show, like you can feel that versus the flip side of like, hey, like Dan's playing Fall Guys and yeah, he thinks it's cool, but we also know about an hour like he's done, so like it's not really that fun anymore. Like Divinity, it's like, like you can feel that, and so I don't know, and it's just fun on this end, and I'm sure you can say the same when you have games that you're like Deadly Premonition, like you're fired up, like you're excited for it, and you know that people are also excited because you're excited, like Doki Doki, like. I know that's a little bit of a blend of like, the community wanted it, but I'm sure you embraced it too. Like I saw you reading like line after line after line after line. We don't watch it, but like I know you had fun with it too, So it's just like when you bottom line is I feel like if people see you having fun and being entertaining and engaged, that's how they're gonna be. If people are like, oh, this is kind of awkward, like that's probably because it is kind of awkward when you're watching it.
I'll say like I have like a second dub, and I'm just adding it as an addendum here because it fits in perfectly with what you said. Like I kind of hit that point with Fall Guys, and I guess to some extent with Doki Doki as well, where the dub is that the numbers are insane for both of those. Now it's a very temporary dub for both because I think that eventually the Fall Guys, the moment is going to dry up, but it's lasted longer than I think everybody thought and been way larger than anybody thought it would be. And the Doki Doki stuff, of course, is just gonna, the game ends, right? And I'm not gonna pivot to visual novels because honestly, they're exhausting. To record an 8-hour visual novel where you're like reading every piece of dialogue is exhausting. But like the numbers on that are insane. So for Doki Doki is kind of just the dub in terms of like, I guess vindicating me because so many people were like. A lot of people were like, I'm interested to see how this is going to go. So many people were like, don't do it. You're going to hate it, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of took the defensive approach of like, you don't get it, I guess, is what I'm, in my head, I'm like, if I hate it, then it'll be good. And if I love it, even better, because I think it'll be good either way. And I know myself, I think people sometimes are guilty of like, like I think if I had been like, hey, I watched this guy play Clubhouse games for like 30 hours. I watched him lose 20 Mahjong games over the course of like 2 weeks. They'd be like, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, because the way that he does it is entertaining, So Doki Doki is like a vindication. But then Fall Guys, we're at like, we've been almost a month of an episode a day if you include the Golden Goblet stuff. And I hit a point maybe around like episode 10 where I was like, I don't know if I'm really like feeling this anymore. I'm getting a little like fatigued from the games. Then I thought, you know what? Let's just let it ride for like another few days and see how I feel. And I'm like pogging out of my gourd. Then the numbers help. Obviously, the numbers are great. But then there's also like a little narrative of like, watch this man slowly degrade into being, a degenerate member of society who does everything that he hates. And also like the wins are getting nuts. Like I recorded one video yesterday, 2 rounds, 2 wins. And I never hit that level of success in any other game that I play. So I definitely think, people listening to this, admittedly it's high level stuff, but they might be like, well, just because I got one thing like that's doing well for me, I should also pivot. I agree. But simultaneously, I'm like, you should also keep hitting that nail. As long as there's still nail to drive into the board, and as long as you're not miserable doing it, and this is a much higher level topic for another day, but I think way too many YouTubers kind of like, I don't know, it sounds bad, but the way that it came to my mind is like they value their own moment to moment happiness more than they actually value the stability of the audience and the job. I think they take the audience for granted in some ways. And they're like, well, I'm only having a 6 out of 10 time playing Fall Guys. But if I was playing Path of Exile every day, I'd be having a 9 out of 10 time. And really at the end of the day, like your overall happiness changes almost zero. In fact, your happiness probably might even dwindle if the analytics did what I expect they do. But I think hitting the drum over and over, as long as you got a drum that's got It's still got some timbre left to it. Is good.
Note to self: record a couple Fall Guy videos.
Yeah. The thing is, and if you, because I know it's a good fit for you, I don't know if you have the time. However, you know, two Fall Guys rounds where you make the finals in each and maybe even win comes to like 22 minutes.
Yeah.
So
no, for me, it's like it's written on my board as like, when you have time, this is the next YouTube video to do. Like, it's not something I don't want to do, but it's like, you know, just getting everything done. But what you said resonated is like, look, you don't always get to control where the wave is, but if you can identify it and you're like, all right, like you got to jump on it when you can, even if it's like you said, a 6 out of 10, but if it gives you 20x pogs on your views, you know, like, but anyway.
I think it depends on your perspective. I know we should pivot because we're gonna go way late on time. But I think like people also, you know, it depends on your perspective. If I had the opinion, like when I put out Isaac episodes in the window surrounding the DLC, that like, oh, finally my episodes are getting what they deserve. I think that when it dipped 80% or, you know, 75%, I'd be like, why am I waiting? You know, a month ago I was getting 100,000 views on this episode. Now the episodes are getting 30,000. But that's not the way I look at it. I'm still like, you know, I don't know, what are the episodes? When do the episodes become non-economical for me to do? I don't know. I'm doing videos that take more work, that get less views on the regular, and I've been doing it consistently for like 10 years. So we're not even close to that level yet.
Well, I think the word that you hit is huge. Is deserve, right? You're like, oh, like I don't look at it as like these deserve more video. Like they deserve whatever they got. You know what I mean? Like that's you know what I mean? And then that's what you looked at your channel as a whole. You know, back in January, you're like, hey, look, like I want to push this. It's not like you don't deserve more. Like you go out and find a way to earn them more, say, or like entertain more people to do it. And I think that's the word I hear from people that I'm like, no judgment, but I'm like, that's gonna hold them back. Like, oh, I deserve to be in X event, or this person doesn't deserve it. Well, they did the work, they put in the time. And I don't think it's about deserve. I feel like it's either work and figure it out or you don't. And I know I'm just saying there's no
I'm with
deserve.
you.
Yeah.
I think it's a hot take, but sometimes I see like people will be like, you know, it's hard to get discoverability for new streamers. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But like, why is Twitch giving NL a spot to do something instead of like a streamer that just got started? I'm like, screw you. I've been doing it for 10 years. You've been doing it for, you know, 10 weeks. And you're like, you know, I'm not saying that it's easier for you than it is for me. I'm just saying, like, you know, if you've been with a company for a while, you're going to get some perks over somebody that's like, well, that's not fair. How am I supposed to compete with somebody that's got experience?
But also I would push back and say it's not your relationship with Twitch, because that's a whole different thing. But over 10 years, you've honed your craft. You know what I mean? Like you've gotten better. You have better shows. You like, even if you go back 5 years, I'm sure if you watch one of your videos, like, oh, your voice is way different inflected. Yeah. So it's like, it's 10 years of work and building relationships, but also like your craft and have gotten better, which is why like when someone sees you on like doing a Twitch award show, they're not like, oh, why is this guy here? Like, oh, I know exactly why he's here. I watch his stuff. And that's the crazy thing to me. And I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but like, and I don't want to go back to it too much, but the 1% of Twitch is not what I thought it was. Like I thought 1% of Twitch is like 5,000 concurrents. It's like,
no, it's probably like 75 or something.
No, yeah, it's like maybe like 200 and up is like the top. That just blew my mind. But so anyway, so just the whole deserve, when you said that, I'm like, well, that's why you're doing like you're doing. You don't deserve anything. You just go out and get it. So anyways, you said you're gonna pivot.
Yeah, so I mean, the L of the week is kind of related to I mean, I think it's most related to like putting on a show. I think it's transparent that the L of the week this week was a little bit of a deflated Unity, which, you know, is stuff that we're talking about in the back channel, trying to figure out how we can make it a situation where, you know, we as streamers, like you and I have a very similar philosophy on this for sure, that it's not like we should let what happens in the game dictate the philosophy of how the show goes down. The show should always be like, if we get blown out, we're here to entertain people. Yeah. And if we win a lot, we're here to entertain people. And if we got some up, some down, we need to entertain people, you know? So I think that, you know, and I talked about this in the back channel, and I was like, I come into Unity like pogged every week. And then something that I think has been happening, and it's as the novelty of Warzone wears off and you see less of the cool new stuff and more of like the, oh, I really should have had that guy. And now I'm frustrated because like I didn't perform at the level that I expected to. Some weeks we come in, we're pogged and it's awesome. And then some weeks we come in and, like one person, and it's not always the same person, but one person starts to have a bad time and then like the audio quiets way down. And then, that's where I'm like, why am I like, because you're not that I'm always, I think you're the one that's always, no matter what, trying to keep the conversational momentum. I'm usually probably the second last to go though. I'm like, because sometimes I find myself being like, I want to entertain, but it's hard when people start to, dip out of the call. And I think it has compromised the quality of the show. But I think, we've been through this before as a group of four, and we're going to get back to it. The frustrating part was like operationally, like in the moment, having stuff like that happen and chat watch. And it's frustrating. You watch chat like actually pick up, like get more popular, but all they want to talk about is interpersonal stuff that's happening within the call and like how it's affecting the show. And I understand obviously that people have like live feedback that they're like, I'm seeing this, I want to say this, but then the people that are in the call read it. And even me, who's, somewhat unaffected by that stuff in the moment for the most part, you're like, well, no longer are we like putting on a show. Now it's like we are the show. And
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. It's like you're too seen.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me is what you said is I'm the same way. Unity is like, and I talked about this in the back channel, like Unity for me, and it's not like we all give up something to do it, right? Like it's I look forward to it because it's like a time to hang out with friends, put on a fun show, but it's also like it's time away from my family, which it's a trade-off, right? Like you have to do that stuff. But for me, like I open up with a 10 kill game, I don't care. Like I'm just having like I don't care. I'm just whether I have 10 kills or 10 damage. Like I just want to have fun and make a good show. And I don't know. I think so much of Tuesday nights. I just want to make sure that like you can feel the vibe, right? And I always look at what can I do to make sure stuff like that doesn't happen. And I don't know. I always feel like if we're not having fun and people see it and they feel it and they know it, and at the same time it's like, well, what can we do to fix it? The way I don't know, I don't have the answer, but I'm with you. What I don't want to really be a part of at all is talking about like what's going on. And that's why like I try to tell you guys, and it happens, but like a couple weeks ago I was sick. I gave you guys heads up, be like, look, like I'm sick, I'm here, but just know like, hey, look, here's where I'm at. But I don't know, I just try not, and I know everyone's different, and I think that it's rare to be able to see a chat go by, and like I'll mix it up too. Like a couple weeks ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, someone in your chat said like, hey, Dan's useless. And like I'd take no offense to that, but I also like to just pop in the middle of the thing and your chat and be like, yo, like I see that, like I understand, but I don't understand where you're coming. But I just want to let that person know that I saw it. So then maybe they're like, or they're like, or they double down. Either way, I just wanted them to acknowledge that, hey, what they said is like that. But I also know I'm different, that like that didn't affect me, how I'm gonna banter or whatever. But I know that that's not the same with everyone. So it's just how do we keep the focus on the fun and the show, not like, oh, Melf ate a ghost pepper and he can't talk or whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but I'm with you, and I feel like one of the things you hit on is that like the novelty of Warzone is like starting to wane. But I look at the novelty of PUBG was gone for a long time, but people tuned in because we were having a lot of fun, and it was like you didn't know what was gonna happen. People weren't, and I could be wrong, people weren't tuning in to see us win. They tune in, maybe they win, but at least they're gonna hear 18 renditions of Steely Dan in the red zone along the way.
I think, I mean, you've hit it. What's hard to convey to people is, this is not like we're not like a cast, we don't script the show in advance. You know, sometimes it's catching lightning in a bottle to get like that good chemistry on the day, and sometimes you got to like put the work into it. What we need to do, and it's hard, obviously, but you know, we need to create a situation where the result is not what determines like the quality of the show. Because if we, you know, at least for three of us, we're not, you know, people don't watch us because we're particularly good at games, right? So what we
Hold on,
need
real
to,
quick. I did
yeah,
see your headshot out of the helicopter. I was pretty pogged up on it.
thank you. And I mean, dude, you had like you probably had like 35 or 40 kills over Unity this week. So I think like, you know, we've got the, you know, as a group, we have the cart before the horse where we're like, we need to win in order for people to be like down with watching the show. And I understand how that philosophy happens because in week 1 of Warzone, everyone's like Pog Warzone. And then, you know, it's like week 12 of Warzone. Sometimes people are like Pog, but they take it for granted. But then if you miss a shot, people are like, what are you doing? It's crazy. So some of it is like, I've got to, you know, I'm just trying to stave off the barbarians. Like every win staves off the barbarians a little bit more. But philosophically, I mean, you know, you take it as you never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So I think Unity has been kind of flagging for a couple of weeks in terms of Warzone. I think there's
what does that
some,
mean? What is flagging?
that's like, you know, it's slowing down.
Okay.
Or like I would say that like they've been lower quality Unities for like a few weeks versus like a month ago, and not to say that like they've been bad, but I think like if anything, it kind of reaching ahead gives us the opportunity to talk about it and recenter what we want the show to be with the recognizance that, I mean, it's kind of the same with like Doki Doki. I don't think what chat wants is what they actually want to see. Like with Doki Doki, people were like, it's going to be bad because he's going to hate it. And I'm like, no, it's going to be good because it's entertaining. So I think chat is like, we want to see, like a lot of people at least are like, we want to see Pog plays, or at least that's what they're saying when they spam emotes when you miss. But what they actually want to do is be entertained. And I think that, you know, having a situation where things were kind of bad for a week gives us a chance with one another to be like, hey, we're doing this because it's fun, not because of the fact that, you know, people expect to see 35 kills a game total from us and get a lot of wins. So I think hitting that balance is going to be good this week. But I'm optimistic that, you know, it gives us a chance to know like, hey, that's like, that can't happen again. Oh, it'll be devastating. So, you know, hopefully it's one of those things where you kind of like glance rock bottom and bounce up with a new perspective instead of like, you know, what we were doing before, which I kind of thought was just slowly dipping until maybe hitting a week where somebody was like, I'm out on this for now.
Yeah, and now there's only one direction. There's only one direction to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Through the roof. That's
Yeah,
through the
hopefully.
roof. But speaking of, as we pivot away from that, speaking of Doki, just for my personal selfishness, what episode number is where the big drop is? I don't know what the big drop is, but I know you talked about a big drop.
It's either today's or it's or tomorrow's.
Okay, because I click and I look through the comments for timestamps. I'm like, when's the moment coming? You know, so yeah, so I think, you know, to wrap up the stuff on Unity, I'm with you. I feel like it's a good time, you know, on back channel, and I think this is another thing for, you know, maybe from content creation side of things or just everything, and I think was probably as fed into like the longevity of Unity and, you know, a lot of stuff is that these conversations we have are like on the back channel, right? Like it's not like, oh, what do you do? Like it's just, it's like there's a certain respect where it's like that allows us to move forward if there's any issues that we need to work on, or it's all done privately. And I feel like part of me is like, that's how I mean, all of me is like, that's how it should be. Like people, like same take on when you come to Twitch, you're not, my take on it is I'm not there to learn about your problems. Like it's not like I want to be entertained. Like when I tune in the Happy Hob, I want to see him get hit three games into a hitless run and then yell no. Like that's like, I don't want to hear that, you know, his dog pooped on the carpet or something like that. So that's how I take on it. But I'm with you. I feel like, to me, I love Unity for a lot of reasons. One, that's like kind of like my guys night, you know, like I don't have friends around here that play games, and two, like we're all so different. Like me, you, Melf, and Apollo, we're so just, everyone's so different, and the way that it's worked for so long, I think it's fun, and you know, like, you know, I've learned a lot of different things from playing, and so I'm with like you. I'm optimistic about the future. But we're gonna pivot here as we wrap up to we'll take a couple Q&As, both off Twitter and Twitch. One came in last week from Michael Benson. I think it's an interesting one, and I got a take for it, but I want to hear yours too. It's from Benson. It says he was featured in a clip compilation on YouTube, but he said it felt weird because the creator asked for permission after the video was released. How do you deal with this? And he also said I was featured in it. Thanks for the heads up. I didn't.
Hey, my take on this is going to get me in a little trouble for sure.
Okay.
I think to some extent it depends on the context for sure, but I look at it as a situation where if it's like, oh, most Pog clips of Fall Guys, most Pog clips of PUBG or Warzone or whatever, I'm like, it's free real estate in my opinion. The one thing is, I think in a perfect world they should ask you for permission before they put it in. And I mean, is there an excuse for them not to? Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work to find the people responsible and communicate with them and then get it. And you're like, what is a 30-second clip of you like landing a headshot on a guy in a helicopter? So like, for me, obviously, like if someone was taking my videos wholesale and like re-uploading them to a major outlet and then being like, this is mine, I would have a big issue. But whenever people are like, hey, you're, like that one PUBG clip of Apollo getting hit by the car has been bit crushed and uploaded, in 900 different places with different watermarks on it. And I'm like, here's something I've never done in my whole life. I've never watched a clip compilation, seen a great clip and been like, oh, I'm going to watch that guy for the rest of my life now. Like it's never happened. I just watch the clip compilation and go like, hey, that was funny. I'm going to watch more compilations. So I don't think it has a negative effect. I don't think it has much of a positive effect, but I think it has more of a positive effect than a negative effect. And also, without being like insanely rude, I feel like a lot of streamers and YouTubers should acknowledge that we build our businesses essentially on the backs of other people's copywritten content. Whenever I see a YouTuber or a streamer get bent out of shape about, like, oh, a gameplay clip got uploaded without, I mean, it should always be credited for sure. But whenever like, oh, they didn't ask my permission before they shared it, I'm like, well, did you email 2K and ask for, I mean, I'm sure that they would give it to you, but at the same time, everything you do on your channel, when you watch a YouTube video on your channel and react to it, did you send a message to the person before you watched it? Or did you just go, I could just go to this in 2 seconds? So I think that there's a little bit of hypocrisy in the industry when it comes to that as well.
Yeah, I echo everything for you. To me, it's like, hey, someone wants to signal boost your stuff and say it gets 100,000 views and you have like 15 seconds in there. Like, does that do you any harm? No. It does. Is there a chance it helps you out? Yeah. And so like that's happened to me. I've had people like put my stuff in Tarkov clips. Some people ask, some people don't. I'm with you. As long as like they're not taking an entire episode or something and re-uploading it, I don't care. But I don't know. To me, that's the whole game. The whole game is like distribution, right? And if someone's gonna do that for you, and like you said, you haven't clipped, like you haven't seen a funny clip and be like, yo, this person's really funny, let me go watch them. But I think there are people that will do that. Maybe not all 100,000 that watch the video. So Benson, I would take it as like flattery that someone thinks enough of your channel or your clip to actually include you in something like that and do the work to do that. And my take on it is, because I do, like, I'll react to stuff live on YouTube, on Twitch. If it's something like real quick and funny, like an 8-second meme video, like, okay. If it's like a little bit longer, I'll drop the YouTube link in the channel. Or if it's something that's premeditated, because a lot of stuff is just random, but something like premeditated, like I watched a lore video on Dark Souls from Vadi Vids. I reached out to him, like, hey, can I do this? But I knew like we're gonna watch a lot of it, and he said yes. And most, like, I've never had someone say no, because they're like, yeah, why wouldn't I want you to expose my channel to a couple hundred or 1,000 people already watching? So I would take it as, as like, hey, you're doing something right or something really wrong if you're being featured in compilations. This one is from Aether. It's Aether0. It's along lines what we've been talking about. It says, do you talk to sponsors about getting the potential loss in viewership because it's an ad on stream, or do they figure that into the discussion about pay?
I think they figure that into the discussion. Yeah. Like, I mean, because it's like a universal truth that except in rare situations, sponsored stuff will always have lower viewership than if you were playing what you were known for to begin with. The way that they get around it sometimes is they'll request that maybe like, hey, we want you to stream this for an hour, but we also want you to stream something else of your choice for an hour and then pivot to this so that you're not coming in like from zero and maybe not hitting the numbers that they'd like you to hit. And I think that's, that's acceptable. It's not like when, Burger King is buying ads on, CBS television programs. They're not like, hey, we're going to just open with a Burger King ad. They're like, we want to get the first commercial break in the season premiere of Survivor or something like that. So, I think that I think that it makes sense personally. I don't, but the thing is, do you go like, hey, that's too much money? Just so you know, this is probably going to tank. So maybe you want to cut your ass. No, I probably wouldn't say that. That's as far as the thing is, that's without being cynical, that's their job. And the way that, it's the cost of doing business. If they do something and it pogs up out of control and goes viral, they're not like, here's an extra 100%. If they do something and it doesn't hit the numbers that they expected to hit, they also don't get to be like, give me 50% back.
That's how I was laughing when the question was, because I was like thinking, like they know that it's not, like they know it's not going to get the same as when you stream the pentathlon. They know. But I would say if I was Burger King, if I was in charge of Burger King, what I would do if I were sponsoring you, I would pay you like a similar amount, but instead of you like doing whatever, I would have the Burger King, come to your apartment, hand deliver you a Whopper, and then you take a bite out of it and then put it down, and that's it. And that clip right there, it's all over your Reddit, it's retweeted. Let me, Burger King, come. We'll fix this problem that you had. Next question is from Binks Plays on Twitch. Says, what is the best way to ethically promote your channel if you're brand new? My number one recommendation is go to every large Twitch streamer and just start spamming your URL as much as possible.
Hey, help my friend. He wants to get to 50 viewers. I mean, we've talked about this before for sure. I think that the easiest, I don't know. The thing is, I don't think like an unethical way, like I don't think spamming in other people's chats is even worth mentioning. Because like, when have you ever?
If you're listening, I was a complete facetious. All right, go.
But like, when have you ever been like in someone's chat and they're like, "Oh, how did you discover Dan?" Oh, it was, I was in another chat of a streamer I actually like, and then someone came in and was like, "Hey, watch my friend," and I've been here ever since. Like people just ignore it. It just goes out of their brain. So like, I think what I've harped on before is if I had to start from zero, and it's not easy, obviously, but you have to. It's a marketing problem where you have to find a way to package the content that you make that makes a disproportionate amount of people, click on it, whether that's like, 5% of people that see it click on it, or, 2% of people that see it click on it versus 0.5% for the average stream title or something. So having anything that allows you to package your content to set it apart, even if it's like, hey, I'm a variety streamer, but we do it as a show like Dan and I do. Or, we've talked about it before. I'm an artist. If you come in, like you can request a character and I'll draw that character as best as I can in 5 minutes. And then, blah, blah, blah. A programmer, and we're working together to build like a game in, a week or something like that. So having something to set yourself apart that is not just, I'm live playing Warzone and, I'm decent or whatever.
My best advice, and it's a long-term advice, and it has to be done genuinely or it won't work, is that be part of other Twitch communities and other Twitch channels that you like or that you enjoy being around or could see similar things of what you'd want in your channel, and like just be a part of the community. Like there's people I know in the community on my side of things that like I know they stream, and so I check them out. Not because like I'm looking for someone playing The Witcher, but because I know they're part of the community. And then all of a sudden, like people, know, like, and if there's a day and time where like, hey, there's someone streaming my community, I check them out. I'm like, oh yeah, I could do something with that person. Like that's one way, become a part of another community. And even not from me, like I know there's people in the community now that stream and other people know that and they watch them, not because they're like, hey, check out my stream, but people are like, oh, they're pretty good and they're part of the same community. And, so like get involved in other communities. Now that's not like, hey, it's not going to get you from 1 to 1,000 overnight, but you just never know, and like, I'm sure there's people I don't know. I mean, it's a whole different conversation, but I'm sure there's people that, you're now connected with that watched you. I'm being one of them. It's different paths, but you don't know. Like Mathis watched you, and I mean, it's a different time back then. You're like, hey, can you go to lunch with me? You know, but the thing is like the caveat is like, do it without that expectation. Just be a part of the community, and you just don't. Not like, oh, let me wait for the right moment to ask Dan to host, to go live or whatever, and stuff will happen. All right, and kind of along the same lines, this is specifically for you. This is from Southern Fish. Says, I want to know how much doing things like the co-optional podcast helped you build the channel, because that's initially how I found you, Ryan. This is from Southern Fish. What's your take on that?
I think it helped a lot, honestly. And the only reason I can really say that is because I hear people say it all the time. Like, it's probably when you ask people like how they discover me, there's a ton of Isaac, and then there's like a little Super Meat Boy, a little XCOM, a little Spelunky, a little Slay the Spire, a lot of Poison Mushroom or like other stuff on Machinima way back in the day. And then there's, probably the co-optional podcast is right up there. So I do think it helps, but I mean, it's also kind of, again, it's a high level opportunity, right? Like, if you're just getting started on YouTube or Twitch, you're probably not going to get too many invitations to like be on the biggest game. Yeah, exactly. And that didn't happen immediately either. It wasn't like I got cold called. Like, I had worked with TB on some stuff in the past, and I'd known him like at least as an acquaintance, if not a little friendlier than that, for a while prior to that. But I mean, I think there is a lesson there, which is that, like, the reason I was on the podcast was not just like a play of like, I'm going to get exposure for being on the podcast. It was also like, hopefully them being like, this guy's going to A, bring some of his audience to the podcast as well, but B, he has like an insight on the industry that is unique, or at least compelling, that we can get from him. So, to package it as advice that's maybe more usable by someone that's getting started, it's possible you might be able to get on, a guest appearance on a stream or a podcast that, is a much larger than your station in terms of numbers, because of your expertise. Like, there's a lot of podcasts that are like, hey, this is like streamer business. We're talking about like streamer stuff. If you work on the other side of the industry in any way, like if you have any experience in things that streamers don't have experience in, like accounting or, business, marketing and stuff like that, tech sometimes, I think you can give, you can essentially become a good guest as a result of offering something that they don't have. It's less about like, hey, what can this thing do for me? And more like, is this a natural fit? Where being on this is going to benefit their show, and also people, because if their show is good, more people are going to also be like, you're a good guest, and want to have you back in the future, and maybe check out your solo stuff.
Yeah, like just something I could speak on directly going on right now. So there's a Tarkov tournament in the works, run by the biggest Tarkov guy, Pastilli, and like, I'm talking him back and forth about getting involved, but my take isn't, hey, how do I maximize my exposure on this massive Tarkov event? I go to him and be like, hey, look, how can I help the most and make it fit? And if it works, cool. If not, then cool. But my approach is, all right, here's this production going on. What are my talents I can use strictly to make that better? Not like, oh, hey, make sure to plug when I do this, make sure to plug my Twitch. It's like, if you just do stuff to like make things better or contribute, like Ryan, when he went on the podcast, they knew he was going to bring it. He's a very capable, well-spoken, knows a lot about the industry. Like, they brought him on because they knew people would be excited to see him, one, and two, he would provide value to the show. And so everyone's value they can provide to something is different. Whatever you're good at, like, just share that. I mean, I know it's forehead advice, but the forehead advice is look at what you can do to help, not what you can do to extract value from, because that value will come to you just naturally without you having to like leverage it that much, if that makes sense. Okay, we'll take one more here and then we'll wrap. So this next one is this okay, this could be a little spicy. This is from Hoog78. Says, do you guys ever consider going into emote only chat when things get divisive, or do you view that as a cop out by not having a positive or moderated chat?
I think emote only is just bad.
Why?
Like we've had emote only in the past, and it just ticks me off as the streamer. Like I don't see it as a moderation solution. If chat's bad, like it's bad. I'm not gonna say that you shouldn't try to fix it, but like I think it can be solved with culture change and moderation and stuff like that. But the emote only chat, I'm like, I'd rather have no chat for sure. I'd much rather have subscriber only chat than emote only chat, without a doubt. But yeah, like I mean, I saw someone in chat like NASA's chat is emote only. Don't get me wrong, I understand why, because it's going to get 100,000 viewers, and if even 0.5% of those people are bad eggs, NASA's going to have to hire like 100 moderators to watch their chat. But I was watching and I was like, this is just boring. Everybody's just, it's not even like they're responding to what's happening. They're just putting emotes like random impulses. Like there's a pog, and then there's like a streamer Ahiago emote, and then there's resident sleeper, and then like it's not even related to what's happening on the, like, if anything, I think emote only just encourages people to like participate without having any rhyme or reason behind it. So for me, it totally like undermines the spirit of Twitch in general. The only time I could see using it is like, I mean, like I'm like, if you got brigaded in some way, that you were getting like a ton of toxicity, but at the same time, like at that point, like I don't see any problem to that. Any problem where subscriber only chat doesn't do the same thing as emote only but better, unless you're just getting tilted by chat like nonstop, in which case I think you need like maybe you need to say something to chat, and then also do a perspective switch on yourself, because it's not the way it should be, for sure.
Yeah, my take is the same. Like I was trying to fathom a reason to do emote only chat, and even if it was like what you said, Hoog, like if things are getting divisive, I would step in and be like, hey, like, and the moderators already do a great job, but I just can't see, like, outside of like a meme, like I can't see of like a reason to do it. But it's interesting to hear your take on the NASA thing. Is like, it really, no one's providing any value, versus like if you're watching a takeoff, you could see people typing stuff, but then I'm sure you're also going to see people in there typing like, derogatory stuff about NASA, or like, whatever they're going to say. So I get it. Like when you said, because I didn't know that, I didn't know NASA went emote only. I'm like, kind of makes sense. Like I kind of get it. Like if you have anything, I don't know, I guess that could be remotely divisive. I wouldn't say it's like super divisive. It's maybe a way to combat it. But to your take is, if they're going to have a Twitch channel and they have the resources, it may be worth getting 50 people to moderate it, and
Well, I think like no chat is better than emote only. Like emote only is just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like looking at like pretty lights or something like that. Like it doesn't it doesn't inform the video content. It's barely affected by the video content. And moreover, I think, again, like if you're a corporation, whatever, I still think there's a better solution. Like maybe emote only for a bit, but then once your channel's been around for a few years, like if NASA's had their channel for like 5 years, what if you put it on like 1 year follower only chat? Like surely at that point you would cut down on 99.9% of the people who would just drive by troll, right? No one's gonna, 1 year from now, during that
now's my moment
ever launch, forehead, and then get banned. It's just people that they don't sustain that level of ambition for that long. But like as an individual streamer, whenever I see emote only, I'm like, well, there's a couple things. I'm like, what the heck happened? And like the other thing is like, what am I doing here?
Real quick, just because I'm interested. Have you ever, like, I know you said subscriber Sundays, and have you ever gone to subscriber mode ever, and like on the fly? For what reason?
Yeah, I mean, it would sometimes like mostly it's happened during Unity. Honestly, the only times it happens are Unity, when chat gets divisive or like just rude. But even then, it's less about being like, oh, subscribers aren't rude, and more about being like, that's like step one of the escalation. Like that's the curfew before we get to martial law, where we just start yeeting some people for 5 or 10 minutes. But then the other one is like, I used to do like subscriber only chat on Sundays just as a perk. But then I don't know. I think you and I have a very similar philosophy in that, like, I don't really want to make the content worse for anybody, which honestly ties back to like the compilation stuff. Like, if you, I don't want to make it harder for anybody else to enjoy the stuff that I make. So I think having subscriber only chat on all the time, unless you have a chat that is like moving so fast as to be completely incomprehensible, I think that it kind of works against what I'm going for.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Like, to do subscriber only or to emote anything like that, to me, it's like if I have to censor chat, like then I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm doing something wrong, and I don't ever want to censor chat in that way. If there's something that's like has gone outside the confines of the show, then it's like, all right, that's not what the show is about, you know. But if it gets to that point, then I look at it's on me. Like, you know, I need new moderators, or I need to do a better job not fostering that environment. And to me, like, if you know, never say never, but if you see me do that, it may be time to like rework stuff. But at the same time, I'm not like, if that's how you run your Twitch channel, go for it. And because I know there's people that, like, we've talked about it before, and we don't need to go on, that are like knowingly satirical, or knowingly they present a troll broadcast. So of course that's what they're gonna get.
Yeah.
So anyways, I did want to present this to you, and don't spam Ryan with it because I didn't run this by him. But if you're listening or you're watching live, tag me, and I don't, let me tell me if you have a problem with this. Tag me on Twitter with people you want to see be a 1 week replacement host while Ryan's gone. And
go ahead.
Okay, because I don't.
It's fine with me.
Just, you know, we got to start getting the planning going as Ryan's phasing into the territory of fatherhood. Anyone you want to see as the host, tag me on Twitter at DanGheesling, so we can start to get that going. I want to make sure that's all lined up. But thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 28. Thank you for the 473 reviews on iTunes. Yeah, we're getting to the 500
Almost
mark.
500, yeah.
Like, my friend's got a podcast. He's really trying to get to 500 reviews. Can you just go spam the link ever? But thank you guys so much for listening, whether you're watching live on Twitch or want to see the video after the fact on youtube.com/Northernlion. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I enjoy doing the podcast, and it's always great to sit down with Ryan. Gary talk shop, and you know, always get your guys great questions and feedback. As always, we'll see you guys next week, Tuesday 6 a.m. Eastern for the live audio, and Thursdays at 2 p.m. if you like to watch it live. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys